Hey everybody, it's Friday, I think. What is today? Today is the 11th of November, 11/11. It's been a rough week in crypto, man. Jesus, because everybody really likes that it's Friday. I don't know, most of the times Friday don't feel like anything to me. It's just another day. This is a Friday. I feel this Friday. I'm feeling it hard. I think other people might be as well. So anyway, we're gonna get started. Let me just, I got a little technical thing here. Let's see if we can, not gonna work. Okay. Who cares? Okay, so apparently we're not broadcasting on LinkedIn. Sorry, LinkedIn, your loss. Anyway, thank you everybody for being here. I'm going to start this off unlike usually we just jump right into questions, right? By the way, we have some questions from Reddit, which I'm going to probably go to first so that we make sure we get them answered, and then I'll jump into regularly scheduled programming and answer questions that are sitting here and have been sitting here for a few minutes. So thanks for asking questions early. Appreciate that. So just so everybody knows what happened with FTX. Well, maybe you don't know what happened, but everybody has seen the aftermath of the kind of FTX breakdown that we've seen over the past week, which obviously has caused additional volatility in the crypto markets. And we've seen a lot of discussion now about, well, things like transparency and doing things the right way and trying to bring more, I guess, more tools so that people can feel safe with their assets, whether they're, to be honest, wherever they sit inside the crypto world. And, we've been fighting that good fight since 2017. I've been fighting that good fight in FX since the late 1990s. And it's a fight that I'm glad to see others are trying to fight. I think that we're, regulators and market participants, good ones at least, have been trying to figure out a way to make data transparent and bring out trust elements inside of their businesses for fucking 40, 50 years, man. This is nothing new. Unfortunately, blockchain doesn't necessarily fix this, and we'll probably get into that. I'm not going to go on a whole total rant right now because I'm sure there's going to be some questions about it, so we're going to talk about it. Just know that, Coinmetro was built on this idea that things needed to change in traditional finance. And if you saw a tweet I made just 2 days ago, which was, we're becoming traditional finance, and I say we, not Coinmetro, but that is in the industry as a whole. And that's sad to see. It's sad to see the same nonsense and BS that happens in traditional markets starting to happen in crypto. Unfortunately, Bitcoin doesn't fix this. If you're a maximalist, I wish it did. It would make my life a lot easier. But we will find ways to fix this, and we're going to talk about some of those ways today. But let's jump in. I'm going to start with Reddit questions because I want to make sure I get to them. I've made some banners with these Reddit questions, and there's, I think, 6 or 7 of them. I'll try to get through them as quick as possible. We can jump into the live questions. Just know there's no moderation here. I answer questions as they come in. I answer every question. There's been a time or two where I missed one, not on purpose. But if I do that, you can always tag me on Telegram at Kevin Murcko. I use my real name. It's me. Watch out for fake Kevins. Now that Elon decided that $8 was enough to get a blue check mark. That was comical, by the way. Okay, so here we go. I think this was the first one. So any thoughts on ALBT Alliance Blocks futures? Not really. Look, I think the market itself has put the cart before the horse a lot of times. And when I say that, what I mean is we've kind of tried to go into this illiquid market and move into futures, and everybody talks about ETFs like somehow that's going to save the world, without having a fundamentally secure and fundamentally, I'd say properly built underlying infrastructure. And so when I see projects moving down the path of futures and synthetics, and while that's great in some ways, first, most people are never going to use those products, at least most normal people. And secondly, unless you have a really good underlying, building anything on top of that provides additional risk. FTX, there's a reason, you build risk on top of risk. Eventually, if any of that risk falls, imagine it being dominoes. There's a meme out there, right, where there's a small domino, and then like 5 dominoes down, there's this massive domino, like the size of a house. And it's not a meme because it's actually a scientific experiment. If you want to try it out, that big domino will fall over just from that first small one in 5 or 6, drops. And that's what risk is. If you have small amount of risk, great. If you build a small amount of risk on top of a small amount of risk, on top of a small amount of risk, on top of a small amount of risk, you have a lot of fucking risk. And it doesn't take much to break. When will people in the United States be able to use the app? More specifically, when in Washington State? Well, people in the United States can already use the app. There are a few states where you can't. Washington State's one of them. Hawaii is another. And New York State is another. All that because of local regulations. So once we acquire licensing in Washington State, where that sits on the roadmap right now, I would probably say at the very minimum, that's end of next year, end of 2023, but more than likely into 2024. But other than those states, you can use the app from the US. XCM has, so there's a few, I had to split this one up because somebody decided to write a book. So I'm going to read through it. I think there's two. It's only two. It's only broken up in two. Sorry. So I'm going to read this one. I'll read the next one. Then I'll answer. XCM hasn't been possible to sell for months due to the absurd price floor that you imposed. What makes you feel like you have the authority to set a price at which the asset that you issue can be traded? Are you sure you will be able to justify such market manipulation and abuse of your authority in a legal investigation? This was posted by a gentleman. I assume it's a gentleman. Could be a woman. I have no idea. Luke Ass 741. Luke Ass. Or might be Luck Ass. I don't know. I'm bad at pronouncing names. So if your name is Luke Ass, I apologize. Or if it's Luck Ass, I probably hit the nail on the head with at least one of them. So back to the question. So price floor. This has come up a few times. I'm glad it came up today. Let me address it. So one, XCM is a utility token. Now, there's lots of definitions that float around about utility tokens. Some of those make sense. Some of them don't. Some of them don't even really provide a definition. At the end of the day, when you think about what a utility token does, especially on an exchange, that word utility can be used in many different ways. But what it really is it's a product. In fact, it's probably one of the most important products in the entire ecosystem because it allows the company and the user to derive value from the ecosystem that they're interacting with. That makes it a product. Now, if you go to any store anywhere in the world, unless maybe, I guess you go to a flea market, you can barter, right? But if you go to a store, there's a price tag on what you're going to buy. And that price tag is set based on the value that asset holds. Whether it's because it had a cost to produce, a cost to transport, whatever, there's a derived value, and then there's a markup, then there's a price, right? That's how the world works. XCM is a product. And based on the value that it provides in the ecosystem, both the current and the future perceived value, it needs to have a price. That price, according to Coinmetro, is 60 cents. Now, the great thing about crypto in general is that it's an open market, meaning there are decentralized exchanges where you can go and trade at any value you want, as long as the market is willing to pay it or receive it. And Uniswap is a perfect example of that. There are people trading on Uniswap. We don't govern the price on Uniswap. Just like if you buy something from a store and sell it on the street, that store can't stop you from selling it cheaper. Why you would sell it for cheaper is your own business, and no one really cares, but you're allowed to do it, and the store isn't going to stop you. Now, that's the first reason. There's another even more important reason, right? So as the CEO of a company, normally as a CEO, you have a fiduciary responsibility. That simply means you have to look after the kind of financial wellness of your shareholders, right? Your goal as a CEO, your first goal is to make sure your shareholders are happy. How do you make shareholders happy? You create value for them. That's why they invested in you. That's why they invested in your business. In a tokenized company, you not only have a fiduciary responsibility to your shareholders, you have a fiduciary responsibility to your token holders. And now that fiduciary responsibility is multifaceted, meaning there's a lot of different pieces to that, right? There's a lot of different sides. And it can be very complex. At the end of the day, no matter what decision a CEO makes, whether for a shareholder or whether for a token holder in this instance, or a community member for that member, not everybody's going to be happy. The goal is to make sure that most are happy. Now, crypto's volatile. We have had clients that have been supporting us from the beginning. They put their hard-earned money into XCM, most of them for the long term, to support a company they believed in, right? I want to make sure that value is retained. Now, there's nothing I can do to stop things like FTX from happening in the market. I have no control over other market players. I have no control over, Bitcoin whales, or if Saylor decides to sell all his Bitcoin tomorrow, my phone call is not going to stop. But what I can do is try to do everything I can to make sure that value is maintained. And considering the volatility of the market, considering the fact that XCM, again, is a product and has a value within our ecosystem, that price floor was created. Most of the feedback I get about the price floor is positive. And that's not just from XCM whales. That's from just the community in general. They respect the fact that we made a decision that allows them to maintain portfolio value and be ready for the next time liquidity rolls in the market, so that they are already a step above the rest. If you look at every other altcoin, most every other altcoin's fallen by 90 to 95%. Yes, there may be more liquidity at the bottom to sell for an extreme loss. But the value that was once sitting inside of that token is now gone, which means that the utility that was sitting inside that token is gone. And I'm not sure that's better in any way, shape, or form. I hope that answers your question. Feel free to DM me or send a message into our Telegram group at Coinmetro. You can also get me at Kevin Murcko, pretty much on every platform, and let me know what you think. Has there been any consideration of fractionalizing popular NFTs? There hasn't been any consideration as of yet. We've talked about fractionalization and tokenization for a long time at Coinmetro. It's one of my things I love to talk about. I don't yet know if fractionalization just for speculation, i.e. someone buys a Bored Ape, I get to buy like 1/100th of it because I don't have the money to buy a whole Bored Ape, and I can potentially make money if it goes up in value, is really a strong enough utility for me to care about, and for most people to care about. If there's NFTs that provide utility and you can fractionalize the utility, i.e. let's just say, I don't know, the Hilton came out with an NFT that allowed you to stay for free for the rest of your life, and they auctioned it off for charity and it cost 20 million. And the guy fractionally sold it off so that 10,000 people could enjoy 2 free holidays a year or something, 2 free days a year in a Hilton. I don't know. That would be really, that math doesn't work, but you get what I'm saying. Then that makes a lot more sense to me. If you fractionalize the utility, fractionalizing it for speculation, yeah, I mean, we could, as a business, we can make money on that. But if you haven't noticed, Coinmetro isn't necessarily here. Our first topic and on the agenda every day for us isn't we need to make money on the back of our clients. It's we want to make sure our clients can make money and actually get utility and get access and get all the great things that exist in this market. And I'm not sure this does it. Hey, Kevin, IOTA has a staging network called Shimmer. Cool name. It's going to be where all the newest projects get tested before launch in IOTA. I think Coinmetro could benefit from speaking with IOTA Shimmer team about involvement with the community going forward, as they are on the cusp of advancement that Coinmetro projects often pick up. Okay, I think there's no name on this one. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I mean, we don't, obviously, we currently don't list IOTA. I think it is on some short list somewhere. I think, getting involved with all these different types of foundations and launch pads is not a bad idea for an exchange. It's not. Again, it's about where we perceive the most value. Where do we think the most value is? And from there, we look to integrate. And so this is something that I'll definitely keep on in mind. Can't say it's going to happen in the short term, but definitely have something to keep in mind. Thanks for mentioning it. Hi, Kevin. Were you able to deep dive into LTO? Was told to remind you. Really would like your opinion on the coin to see. Okay, so yeah, I did actually take a quick deep dive into LTO. So, I think they're trying to tackle, they talk about the trilemma a lot when it comes to layer ones, right? Which is, speed and cost and blah, 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 scalability. And a lot of companies try to tackle that trilemma. Cadena has tackled it in its own way. Other layer ones have tackled it in their own way. LTO is looking at another type of kind of, I don't know if it was a trilemma or a quadlemma or a dilemma. I don't remember how many problems they were trying to solve, but they're trying to create an ecosystem where between private and public chains, you can kind of get this whole idea of traceability, but also authenticity, sovereign identification, basically a way for you to authenticate something without giving up too much information. And I think in this whole world of NFTs, where we still haven't cracked the surface of what an NFT can do, it's interesting, and that's one of the reasons why we listed it. That I recall now, because too much stuff goes in my head, and sometimes I have to refresh. But it's definitely one of the things that we talked about when we listed LTO, and I think I still think it's interesting. I think like every project, they need to really hone in and get some nice concepts and nice services built on their ecosystem, so that they can prove that people want this because it's cool, and I think it's probably something that can be utilized, especially as the NFT market becomes a bit more mature. But they have to prove it, and that's never an easy task. But I think they're down the path of doing so. So I'm a fan. I'm a fan of LTO. Haven't bought any yet, I'll say that, but I probably will. What do you think about Caspo? Do you have any plans to list it? All I know about Caspo is that I get spammed to all over the place on Twitter about it. And normally when that happens, it makes me not want to look at the project. It's that thing where our job to find quote unquote gems is about finding things many people don't know about. and about finding things that are humbly working on solving problems and not worried about making sure everybody knows who they are before everybody knows what they do. And so that kind of turns me off a little bit. But that doesn't mean it's a bad project. It just means that I haven't looked at it because the approach of how it came to me is not something that I'm necessarily happy, I don't know, smiling about. Any plans to list Cosmos? I think we probably will at some point. They're doing some interesting things over there. And we actually had a conversation about one of our shareholders while we were in Lisbon, who's also a fan. So, all right. I'm going to jump into live questions. We're about 15 minutes in, so not that bad on timing, I think. And let's roll with it. First one in, gold medal goes to the Mad Check. Nice name. The sentiment in crypto is that the hunt for yield is behind the bankruptcies we are seeing currently. Is the exchange token with yield now an outdated model? And what does that mean for XCM? Well, it's an interesting way to look at it. I think the hunt for yield in general, greed, let's call it greed, that's what it is, from a high level, is the downfall of many financial empires. Greed, it has another word for it, though. It's bad risk management. And bad risk management starts a lot of times from greed, meaning, yeah, maybe we shouldn't do this, but we can potentially make a lot of money, so let's give it a shot. Now, our exchange token right now, we make a small amount of yield on that exchange token because we offer it up for some form of collateral on our margin platform, but it doesn't cover the amount of XCM we pay out. And that's a problem that we're trying to solve. The reason why we haven't solved it like everybody else is because we want to do it the right way. The way that most solve it just brings on risk. Now, it may work for a certain amount of time, whether that is providing a super amount of yield, allowing everybody to use it as collateral, building systems around it that allow it to be leveraged, will potentially pay a lot of yield real fast, but they also break very fast. And, as a business, we try to take on zero risk. It's impossible to take on zero risk, unfortunately, but we take on the minimal risk we can. And that's always been how we run the business. And that's the reason why you see us growing maybe sustainably versus exponentially, because we don't take those risks. And while sometimes that may mean a missed opportunity, what it really means is longevity. And at the end of the day, the longer you're here, the more opportunities you get. So I don't think it's an outdated model. I think it's one of those things where it's been done incorrectly. And people see the incorrect ones because they're big, monstrous explosions. They don't see so much the well-run ones, especially the ones that try to avoid taking too much risk. But eventually they do, right? It's the tortoise and the hare. I like to mention that a lot on the show. Make it very visible where XCM yield is coming from to easily search. Yeah, well, I think I just mentioned that. We're not, right now it's basically treasury based, which carries some risk. But we have enough treasury to support that program for years to come while we work around solutions that don't involve extra risk, which allow us to maintain yield on our token, but also don't put us at the risk like we've seen materialize with other players in the market. Does Coinmetro use XCM for collateral in any way? We do not. We as a company use collateral. We do not use XCM for collateral in any way. Is Coinmetro exposed to FTX or any other way exposed to the, so as far as FTX, no, we have no exposure directly to FTX or Alameda Research or any of the parties involved. Now, as far as that word contagion, now, as far as we know, liquidity providers we work with, for example, have all given us statements to the fact that they are not exposed to anything at FTX or any contagion, so to speak. In terms of custody providers, same thing, because they really shouldn't be exposed in any way. If they were, there'd be something wrong with their business model. So large custody providers, insured custody providers that we use, some like BitGo, like Fireblocks, et cetera, are also not exposed. So I can say with probably 99.9% clarity that we have no exposure. Obviously, there may be something that we haven't seen or we missed, but that 99.9% would mean that even if there was a small amount of indirect exposure to what's happening, it would have such a small effect on our business and our operations, it would probably go unnoticed. And the reason I say 99%, I think saying 100% anything like this is just disingenuous, because that's me telling you I'm omnipotent and I know everything that happens, outside of the walls of my business. And well, no one knows that, right? So, but all our major providers, all our major liquidity providers, every major business that we deal with in order to provide you service as a client, are not exposed. Will the FTX situation lead to a loss of faith in crypto in general? Well, all these type of things, when they happen in traditional finance, when they happen in crypto, wherever they happen, right? If your grocery store came, I don't know, you found out that they were leveraging all the apples to sell more strawberries and they went out of business, you'd probably be thinking a little bit differently next time you went to buy produce. That's natural. That's human nature. And in fact, it should happen that way. People should have enough knowledge to be able to ask the right questions like you are right now. The problem is that most people don't have that knowledge and they don't seek that knowledge because at the end of the day, they haven't been exposed to anything to seek the knowledge. Being exposed to this is terrible. If you're with FTX, if your money's stuck, if whatever, that sucks. But that is you're paying for an education, right? And if you're on the outside looking in, you now know the questions you should be asking. And that's important because a lot of times the solutions to the problems that get created by these things aren't actual solutions, but most people don't understand they're not solutions because they don't ask the right questions. So yes, there will be a loss of faith for some time in crypto, for sure. Whether that's warranted or not is another question. To a certain extent, it's warranted. But that loss of faith also needs to come down to the fact that, if we were in an environment that promoted, and I mean crypto in general, that promoted doing the right thing, we may not be in this situation. If we were in an environment that had a certain amount of oversight, not too much, not too little, but a certain amount of oversight, we might not be in this situation. And what pains me, what makes me sad, not too sad. I mean, I didn't cry about it, but what makes me sad is that a lot of the things that happen in traditional finance that we all fucking hate, that we all absolutely abhor, and the reasons why many bald dudes that are not, like myself included, that came from traditional finance were in crypto, is because we saw the fact that it could be different, that it could be more transparent, that it could be more open, that the kind of willingness of intelligent individuals with experience talking to regulators might actually lead us down a path where regulation wasn't needed. The holy grail of financial services, where things worked and were trustworthy and trustless to a certain extent, all this great stuff. And now we're kind of back at square one. That sucks. That's the way it is. So yes, there will be a small loss of confidence. I think, most unfortunately, this is an unfortunate thing and it goes back to education. Most people will forget about this relatively quickly. I hope, though, that there's enough imprint on people's minds that they do start to ask the right questions. What is likely response from regulators to the FTX situation? Well, it's not going to be what we want. When I say what we want, I mean collectively like-minded individuals in crypto who understand that if there's no rules, good people will do bad things. If there's no rules, people will be lackadaisical. They will make mistakes and more mistakes than they would because everybody makes mistakes, but they'll make more mistakes because somebody isn't pinpointing where they should be looking. And what the regulator sees, simple as that, is that they failed and there's potentially fraud. Doesn't mean there is. Everybody talks about fraud. And I don't want to go too far down this path because I could talk about this for a long time. Just because the guy was trading with funds doesn't necessarily mean fraud. He shouldn't have done it. He should have been open about what he was doing, and he wasn't. And if that's the case, that doesn't mean it's fraud. What it does mean, though, is that regulators are going to attack. They're going to pounce. And when they pounce, they don't sit down and think and talk to each other and come up with meaningful regulation that potentially can solve the problem. They usually take antiquated stuff that doesn't necessarily solve the problem, makes it more difficult for everybody else, and actually takes away access and rights from most individuals. And they just throw it out there to see what happens because the time it takes to make something meaningful is too long. And they're politicians and legislators are politicians, and they want to have a big splash in media. They want to be able to say, this happened at FTX and we did this. Whether or not that's going to work, kind of meaningless, just that they did something. And, you can say whatever you want about Sam. He was trying to open dialogues. Maybe he was opening the wrong dialogues with regulators. I don't know. I wasn't sitting next to him while he was talking. I've seen a few clips, but he was trying to open a dialogue, and that goes a long way. And I don't know who's going to step up to do that now. Coinbase has been open in a dialogue. Not sure that the Coinbase dialogue is what the collective kind of crypto community wants either. But yeah, regulators are gonna be heavy-handed. That's what they always do. That's not going to change in crypto. Any crisis is also an opportunity. How can and will Coinmetro use the situation to build the company its vision? I love these questions, man. I don't recognize the name, but I hope you come back to future AMAs because you're knocking it out of the park. Every crisis is an opportunity, that's for sure. You have to be mindful, though, that the harder you attack a crisis, there were people that got hurt in this. There are people that will always look at crypto differently, regardless of the opportunity that may arise for Coinmetro. There are people that lost their life savings, for sure. There are people that just aren't going to recover. And so while there are opportunities, we do try to run our business a bit differently here. I mentioned that we don't take risks, or we try to take the most minimal risks we can. We try to grow organically and not exponentially because we want to make sure that we have a sustainable business model. At the same, we've always talked about transparency. We've been talking about regulation when people laughed at us. We were doing KYC when people said, you guys are stupid because no one's ever going to do this. We've always been kind of at the forefront of trying to do the right thing when it comes to, rules, and only because we want to protect the end user and we want to put the end user first. And so we have to be careful because it's not just about transparency. It's not just about doing these things, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm going to toot my own horn. I'm not a musician. If I had a horn, I'd pick it up and play a song, but I'm totally not a musician, and people would just sign off immediately. And rightfully so, because I would suck hard. But virtually, I'm going to toot my own horn just to say, I don't see another CEO doing near weekly AMAs and answering every question that pops up. And you know why? Because transparency, you can put an audited report you can put a report on a Murcko tree. Yeah, I can do that too. I can do that, I can do that right now. Is that transparency? No, not really in my book. I think transparency is about being open and being honest. And, garbage in, garbage out. You still, there's always going to be a level of trust. And in order to maintain that trust, as a business owner, as a CEO, I need people to trust what I'm doing. They may not like everything I do, but I need there to be a level of trust. How do you build that trust? This is part of building that trust. If we jump on a crisis hard as an opportunity, we're going to paint a picture about ourselves that we might not like, that we take advantage of people, that we want to see other people fail, etc. And while that might not be true, we want to make sure that the way we go after this doesn't make us look that way. And so I agree with you. Every crisis is an opportunity. We have to be careful, though, on how we take advantage of it. Would you agree that real-world adoption of crypto, not just payments, but all use cases, is still pretty much non-existent? If so, what do you think will finally change this? I don't think it's non-existent. I think it was non-existent even just 2, 3, 4 years ago. I think there is a growing effort to try and create adoption. And when you listen to the maximalists talk about how, on one hand, stack stats, right? Own your own keys, stack stats, all that great stuff. On the other hand, spend your Bitcoin because it means adoption. Those two things are a bit contradictory, to be honest. I'm not a fan of spending most crypto as a currency. I don't really see the benefit, right? I see the benefit in places around the world. Geographically speaking, there can be a major benefit. There are countries in the world that have capital controls. There are countries in the world that limit people's ability to move money out of banks, etc. And when it comes to that, well, crypto is a great option for them. It's not necessarily a great option globally, though, for these type of things. But the more adoption you get, it brings people into the game, right? If someone sees a Bitcoin logo at their local convenience store, they might go, I heard about that. Let me Google something. Or oh, they're taking this as a payment. Oh, I can pay in crypto. Let me do some research. And so it's not a bad thing. I don't agree that it's non-existent. I agree that it's much bigger than it used to be. But I also kind of agree that we haven't yet cracked what the absolute major reason is that most people will get involved in crypto. I still have my reasoning. It's the same reasoning I had back in 2000, well, almost in 2009 when I read the Bitcoin white paper. I guess it's a little extrapolated from that, but definitely before starting Coinmetro. And that's tokenization. That is, and if you're a maximalist, you hate me at this point, but the idea, the ability to create value and move value and monetize things using digital assets that sit on chains. And also, traceability and all these great things and programmatic money. All this stuff, I think, is the frontier. But I think the way we get to the point of mass adoption is not trying to get everybody to pay for their Starbucks with Bitcoin or their McDonald's Happy Meal with Ethereum or whatever. or XRP. Now everybody hates me. But I think that what we're really trying to do here is that institutions end up utilizing the technology to build value transfer systems. Just like, the internet was, a bunch of dudes chatting and looking at, nudes and pornography and fucking chats. That's what the internet was. You can argue that's still what the internet is. I don't know. And you'd probably be right. But the only reason it's now on, your cell phone, it's the only reason that grandma's using it to get an Uber to go visit her grandkids is because she doesn't know what she's doing. She just clicks on a button and it's done. That's where we're going to go to get super mass adoption. And people won't be talking about the word crypto. They won't be talking about the word blockchain. Just like nobody says, oh, thank God for the database in my house that allows me. Nobody says that, right? I guarantee the word database was a buzzword at some point. Tape backup was a buzzword at some point. There were a bunch of nerds somewhere back in the 70s going, man, tape backups, right? Am I right? Am I right, bro? No one says that shit now because nobody cares because it just works. And I think that's what changes it at the end of the day. That's what changes it. What are your top KPIs for next year? Grow hair. That's a stretch goal, man. I'll probably fail on that one, but you got to fail on some KPIs. I figure I might throw that one out first. I think right now our focus on KPIs is all about expansion of users, bringing more people into Coinmetro. That's a simple KPI to say. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of sub things that need to happen below that for that to come to fruition. I honestly think that, gaining market share and kind of awareness, which also goes along with gaining more clients, it has to be a KPI. I think education should also be entangled in a KPI. Why? Well, look what's happening now. Look at what we're talking about today. FTX and this whole battle now for other exchanges trying to show why they're different, etc. And if you don't understand what happens behind the scenes, if you don't have a view behind the curtain, anybody can say anything that might sound good. Anybody can create something that you think solves a problem, but it might not actually solve the problem. It might not do anything, actually. In fact, it might just be a waste of time. And I think that type of education is important. And the more and more education that we can spread like that, I think the better. And I think it goes to our brand, because saying you're transparent doesn't just mean the simple thing of you can see stuff. It means you can see behind stuff. And I think that's way more important. So for high level though, KPIs is all about growth of the business. We've built a tremendous business. We have a tremendous product suite. We have a tremendous community. I think we are the most open business in crypto. And I think this is one of the reasons why. And I love to do these things and I won't stop. Yeah, I travel sometimes. Yeah, sometimes, I don't know. I may be on a different time zone. Yes, sometimes, whatever happens. But these things are always going to happen because I like to do it. And I feel it's one of the biggest values we give. So high level KPIs is growth, man. We have everything we need to grow. And now it's just about focusing, hunkering down and putting some money into that engine and letting it ride. And also just expanding on people in general, right? Getting great people that can do great stuff. Will Coinmetro release on-chain data about reserves and information about liabilities? Matt Check, great question. I was waiting for this one. So I'm going to touch on this one as deep as I can go, right? So here we go. We always strive for transparency. And I've talked about this a little bit, the difference between what this type of transparency, which is here's some data, versus what this data means, versus, what happens behind the scenes. I'm going to give you a scenario that I think is playing out right now around the market. I've seen now, as I said as well, regulators and good market participants way before crypto have been trying to figure out a way to provide transparency to end users. And they still haven't figured it out. And you could argue that they haven't figured it out because they don't want to. But there's always been market players in the market that want to. But they also want to do something that isn't just a gimmick. That isn't just something to kind of get people to go, oh, okay, great, and move on. They want something that changes the game, that puts pressure on other competitors to do the right thing and not just to kind of do the easy thing. So what I've read about what most other people in this business want to do to bring on-chain transparency is to simply take an audit report. Now, I hate to be the one to say this, and if you're an auditor, I'm sorry. But we all know, if you've been around finance for any amount of time, that audits can be manipulated. Happens all the time. Now, I'm not saying all audits are manipulated, and I'm not saying all auditors manipulate audits. That would be a ridiculous thing to say, but it's possible, and it happens way too often. Now, taking, the blockchain or Murcko tree or whatever type of kind of on-chain we're talking about has a problem of garbage in, garbage out. I can put anything on there and then show you that it's immutable. I don't see the value in that per se. And I've also read about APIs being connected to show client wallet balances. Well, if I control the API, I control the data the API pushes out. Again, where is the real value? If it's just about doing something that everybody else does because, well, they did it, that's kind of like what your mom used to tell you, if everybody jumped off a bridge, would you? Well, that depends. If the bridge was blowing up, probably. But if it was a sunny day and the bridge was fine, yeah, probably not. And so I think we need to examine a bit about the why. So we can absolutely do this, and we are looking at ways to do this, but do it in a way that it's meaningful, that it actually has value, that it's not just a way for us to skirt the problem and hope that nobody pays attention. And so my answer to that question is we're going to do something. We've been talking internally about what that something is. This problem's been a problem for decades. It's not something you're going to solve in 2 weeks. I'll put that out there. It's something that we really need to think about what is a meaningful way to do it. I don't want to do things that aren't meaningful. I don't see the reason to do those things. At the end of the day, everything that's being done that's supposedly supposed to provide transparency to reserves still means trust me, bro. It's just trust me, bro, on chain. It's still trust me, bro. That doesn't change. And so, again, I would love to have a full discussion on this. And if anybody wants to come up and have like a fireside chat about this, I'm game. Because when I shouldn't say if, I should say when we find something that we truly feel provides this data in a way that it's meaningful and it's not just trust me, bro, I'm game and I'm all in. What Mars asset has the best chance to go to moon? My girlfriend's husband, rocking it with the hardcore questions. Every time I see this name, I got to analyze my girlfriend's husband. Okay. Now that one actually makes sense. There was one at one point that was like my husband's girlfriend's husband or something. I forget what it was, but it was really weird. And I tried to map it out in my head and I just couldn't. And I felt ridiculous because it should have been easy, but it wasn't. Anyway, my girlfriend's husband. So I'm not going to answer that question because look, everything that we list, we believe has the possibility to do well. We wouldn't list it if we didn't think it had the possibility to do well. So for me, all of them, maybe not in the same order and maybe not this week, just to burst anybody's bubble who thinks all-time highs are coming. What's your wife up to this weekend? That's an amazing question. I have no idea, actually. I don't know what that says about my marriage, but I don't know. You could ask her though. I'm sure you'll find her somewhere online. It's a good sleuthing expedition, actually. What do you eat on Thanksgiving? I don't really celebrate Thanksgiving. I was born in the U.S. and I think the last time I actually celebrated Thanksgiving was when I was like 8, 10. I don't know how old I was, but the same old cranberry sauce, turkey, all that nonsense. I think this idea of celebrating a holiday where white people massacred 7 million native Indians and across the entire North American region just sounds ridiculous. And to be honest, I give thanks every day. I'm happy to be here every day. I don't need a day to sit down and say thanks. I can just do that every day. What can be done to deal with the XCM rebellion? I don't really think there's a rebellion, to be honest. I think the best way to deal with all this stuff is get more clients, get more people trading XCM, and get the book fixed. That's it. And that's what we're aiming to do. It's not a problem that gets solved in 1 day or 2 days. Yes, we had an initial plan to come in within 2 or 3 months. We had a plan, and like in life, sometimes plans don't work out. And so we're now pivoting and figuring out exactly where we need to attack. Plus, we have more data to understand what the flow looks like within XCM, et cetera. I don't think there's a rebellion. I think there are people that are upset, and they have a right to be upset. Again, my job is not to make everybody happy. It's to make most people happy. Most token holders, et cetera. So I do my best to do that. And, I'm a human. I make mistakes. I still think we made the right decision collectively. And I still think we're going to make several decisions coming up that are going to right the ship, so to speak. But it takes time. It takes time. How can CM make sure upcoming XCM bonuses aren't negated by the ability to buy at 1/3 the price on Uni? Well, the way we mitigate that is to make sure that we get trading back open on Coinmetro with enough liquidity so that Uniswap price corrects itself. Simple as that. If you look at the amount of XCM that's been traded on Uniswap, to be honest, it's minuscule in terms of the circulating supply. It's absolutely minuscule. It may be slightly more than what's traded on a daily basis right now inside of our own book. And, I'm aware of that, but it's still minuscule. And so I'm not so worried about that, to be honest. I think that's a short-term problem. In the long run, no one will remember. CM could buy all the XCM. We could. Not really sure what that does to solve the ultimate issue, which is to get trading more active. And so our focus is on that. We want trading to be active because that solves all these issues in one go, rather than trying to, pick around and solve indirect issues. When XCM goes to 10, what color Lambo should I get? Don't buy a Lambo, man. Trust me. No good comes out of your life just because you own a Lambo. Guaranteed. If XCM goes to 50, I'm naming my next kid XCM. Amazing. Can't wait to see that. I'll need a copy of the birth certificate, though, KYC and all. So you'll have to hold it and hold up a sign with like some writing on it while you're also holding your phone with your third arm. So get ready for that. New members are great, but what's your next near-term strategy to get new members to engage and adopt the CM suite of products beyond staking, which is great, of course. Well, when you look at the suite of products we have, to be very, very honest, they match almost any other platforms that have much more engagement. Why? Well, there's a few reasons for that. All right, this is kind of embarrassing. This is my daughter, so I'm going to have to midstream just see what's going on here. Give me a second. I'm totally going to forget what I was answering. Let's see. Surprised she didn't pop in on YouTube and send me. Maybe she did. I'm like not really that far down the list. This is what happens when you do things live, man, on a Friday at 3 p.m. That's what happens. That's what happens. Nature of the beast. All right, we'll see what she says. Okay, so yeah. So I think what we really haven't done ever is a really concerted effort to make sure that awareness is out there from all different angles, something that we've started just recently, really. And I've heard complaints about everything's always a test. You say you're going to do something and then it's a test. I love those comments because on the face, it's not wrong. But again, it's the difference between knowing this and knowing this. And that's why I like these interactions, because if you ask me a question, I'm going to be honest about it. And a little bit more about what's happening back here. And I said this again, I'll say it again. And it's all about transparency. So this has to do with transparency as well. Most businesses aren't transparent because it hurts their bottom line, period. That's it. Simple as that. And they only go as transparent as they can to where they don't hurt their bottom line. And I've said a ton of shit on the show that probably hurt our bottom line, to be very honest, over the years, right? Maybe not so recently, but definitely over the years. I treat this conversation like I would treat a conversation with people that work in Coinmetro. And that's about sharing with you what we believe is going to happen, our internal roadmaps, how we think we're going to tackle a problem. And when we pivot, we share that too. And, that may be perceived as bad. It may be perceived as good. It's hard for me not to do that. That's not to say that if you tell me a secret, I can't keep it, because I can't if there's a reason to. But I don't see, I look at token holders and why they're not shareholders by the law. I don't really see a major difference. These are people that supported our business. They came in. That leads me to believe that they should be offered up information to understand really what's happening, not just really polished, crafted information that makes us sound great on everything we do. We're going to make mistakes. Everybody does. We're going to do things that you might not like, but we're going to give you a platform by which you can tell us you don't like it. And we're going to explain to you why we did it. And maybe that doesn't make you trust in us more. Maybe that doesn't make you think that we're doing the right thing, but it's completely different to how everybody else runs their business. And I think that's spectacular. So I think people knowing that is a major way for us to get people on board. That, aside from our great products and things we do and products we will roll out and different things we will do that our competitors don't do, the way we do them, people understanding the way we do them, I think is paramount. And we're starting to do that. You'll notice more PR happening. You'll notice a bit of change in the way that we approach social media, etc. And all that's part and parcel of accomplishing that goal. Good morning, Kevin. With the epic failure and illegal behavior of SBF and FTX lead to haphazard bad legislation in the industry, or do you think this will speed up regulatory clarity? Unfortunately, it's probably going to mean bad before it means good, because the one good thing is that in the US, midterms are over. If this had happened 2 months before midterms, I can almost guarantee you there would have been some spicy politician trying to save their House or Senate seat that would have came out with some proposal that may or may not have actually made it through, which would have been disastrous. So in terms of timing, thank you, SBF, for fucking up right after midterms. I appreciate it. Having said that, though, it's probably going to be bad before it's good. The reason is that I talk about this, the education gap. Well, legislators have that gap as well. And actually, I remember seeing something. SBF was in some house. I don't know if he was in Congress or the House or in front of some Senate committee. I forget where it was. But he made mention of the fact that his users probably know more about how the products work and the risks than the legislators. And he wasn't wrong. And that's a problem. And that problem usually leads to bad legislation. And we're probably going to see some bad legislation, unfortunately. We have timing on our sides a little bit, like I said, because of midterms in the US. And I don't mean to say that the US is the only game in town, but to be honest, when it comes to legislation like this, it's usually the first one out the gate. We do have, a very complex situation happening in Europe with MiCA kind of being delayed, the vote being delayed until February now next year. That leaves some time to make more changes, and this will inevitably lead to some changes. What changes? I have no idea. They may end up being good in the long run, but in the short run, because they don't have a lot of time, they're probably not going to be well thought out, and they will only lead probably to businesses needing to take on more risk, which means less availability, less access, and potentially less options for consumers, which is also risky. So we'll see. But I'm not very confident that this is going to help bring clarity. If we mean, clarity, well, it'll bring clarity, but potentially not the type of clarity we're hoping for in the short term. Also, what are your thoughts on exchanges now running to show proof of reserves? I talked about this a little bit. I think the effort to be more transparent is amazing. I applaud that effort to anybody who's doing it. Even my best friend sees it. Okay, I'm happy that there's an effort in the industry to do something to be more transparent. I'm just worried that it's too gimmicky. That's it. And like I said, I would love to have an open conversation about maybe why it's not gimmicky. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe putting an audit on Murcko Tree and connecting an API to Murcko Tree to show client balances. Maybe that solves a problem that I just don't see. I don't think it does, though. And while I'm all for it, and I think, you always need to take that first step. That first step is important. The first step is great, but what about the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth? Is the assumption that doing this, if it is in fact not really a solution, the end? Like that's it? That's as far as they're going to go? I want to see what happens. I'm all for it, and I'm ready to do something, but I want to do something meaningful. Are you still of the opinion that FTX could have done the same to Binance, given the info unfold in the last couple of days? Seems like BNB isn't used as collateral, so XCM shouldn't be used as such too. Well, XCM definitely isn't used as collateral by the business in any way, shape, or form. This comes back to trust. So if I had, from a trust standpoint, everybody's ability to kind of gauge a situation and either trust or not trust is different. We all look at different things, right? I've had this conversation internally with some of my team, and some of the things that I think that make me want to trust somebody more don't for somebody else. So this is my opinion, right? And I'm gonna try to give my opinion as clear and as well thought as I can. So here we go. When I look at what unfolded, I still think yes, it could have happened either way. Now, we know to a certain extent what's happened on the FTX side because Sam has been relatively transparent. Now, whether or not he's been fully transparent, we'll never know. Again, it's a bit of a trust me, bro. If I line up Sam versus CZ with the trust me, bro scenario, my trust me, bro radar is going to go slightly more in favor of Sam, even with what's happened. And there's many reasons for that. And there's too many reasons probably to even talk about in this answer, but there's many reasons for that. Now, I could be wrong, and I admit I could be wrong. But historically, the amount of information that comes out in true transparency from Binance is literally zero. And I've met way too many people that work at Binance and have way too many conversations with ex-employees and current employees to believe that there's an element of transparency here. So I simply don't trust what I hear. That's it. Now, I can be wrong, and I could be wrong. It could be entirely accurate, but I don't trust it. And the reason why I don't trust it is because there hasn't been, it's one thing. Look, Coinmetro from our inception has always preached the same USPs, and that's transparency, regulatory friendly, blah, 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 right? We've always great customer support, etc. We've always preached them. We haven't changed our USPs. Now, if tomorrow we came out and said, fuck the regulator and, this is it, we're just going to go, that'd be weird, wouldn't it? I think that'd be weird, right? You built up this whole thing and now what? Did they find something? There'd definitely be a lot of communication in the industry about why we did that. So for me, someone who has always tried to evade regulation and actively talk bad about it, to then pivot to be the regulatory king is suspect. Simple as that. So my trust radar goes off. And while Sam had really bad risk management and made a lot of bad decisions, I see more transparency there than I see on Binance's side. So I honestly think it could have gone either way. And I think the shrewd business move of CZ probably saved the market a bit more upheaval, because obviously Binance falling in the last few days would have been a much different hit than FTX. Are your past estimates per the XCM order book rebalancing affected? Hold on. Are your past estimates per the XCM order book rebalancing affected? I don't really know what that question is. Are my past, like on the amount of time it would take, or the amount that I can't really answer the question because I'm not sure what it is. I'm sorry. 18 thumbs up even before the AMA started. Amazing. Everybody, my daughter asked me last time. I have 3 daughters, right? 2 of them are old now. They won't like me hearing that, but older. That still sounds terrible. Adults. That sounds better. One of them isn't, right? She thinks she is, and she damn well almost could be, but she's 11, right? So she came in. I was sitting on my computer last night on the couch. She walked in and said, "Dad, what does it feel like to say like and subscribe?" It's like the fucking weirdest question I've ever had in my life. I don't normally even say it. Then I thought about it. It feels fucking weird. But yeah, like and subscribe, because if you don't, I'm just not going to like you anymore, I guess is probably what's going to happen. And please don't try to pronounce my name. Yeah, I didn't even, if you notice, risk aversion, man, I did not try to pronounce your name. In fact, I didn't even see it. As soon as I saw an ampersand or a upside down triangle or whatever that thing is, I just said, poof. My brain was like, nope, moving on. See, risk aversion. I mean, we are so risk averse, we won't even pronounce a name we know we can't pronounce. It's amazing. First for Allah. I'm not even touching that one. I don't know what that was about. In your opinion, is it even possible to bail out FTX without being sucked into the regulatory hole that they obviously dug for themselves? Yes, it is. That's a cop-out. If there's a company that has lots of client assets, you're willing to come in and save those client assets. Amazing PR, by the way, right off the bat. And pump in $9 billion or whatever the hole is, right? You're not taking responsibility for everything they did previously at all. Now, there may be cleanup, which may be a pain in the ass, and you're going to lose some money, but you're not going to be blamed. That's ridiculous. So that's a cop-out. That's just saying, you know what, that either means there's something else brewing, or this was always the game plan. I might have jumped the gun when I thought the game plan was to grab assets under management. I mentioned that in Telegram at least once. Maybe the game plan was just to get rid of a competitor. And if so, well done. Well played. Absolutely well played. I'm sure there's going to be more information that comes out from the FTX side, especially as we go through a court process, which is going to give us probably way more insight onto exactly what happened and whether or not someone's a good guy or a bad guy in the end. We love you, Kevin. Well, thank you. I like to hear that. I'm glad someone does. It's good to know at least one person out there loves Kevin. I appreciate that. Well, you did say we, so maybe that's like you and your sister or something. So that's maybe. Bit of a double echo. Really? That's a little too late in the game. I should have checked, but there was already so many questions. I apologize. Hopefully you've been able to hear all the amazing things I've been saying. If not, I'm going to have to do this again. Hey, Kevin, inflation numbers going down in the U.S. and stocks rocketing up. Did we just hit the bottom, or is it only a short? Yeah, I wouldn't say we very well may have hit a bottom. but I wouldn't be betting on that right now, simply because there's too much macro shit to think that somehow you should never think the bottom's in is probably the better way I could put this. And don't be looking at a moving average or some other bullshit that a 5-year-old uses to trade to figure out if the bottom's in. You'll know when the bottom's in because you'll clearly see the bottom. You don't need lines on a chart to figure out when there's a bottom. And to be honest, you can be kind of late to that bottom and still do amazing. The worst part is being early to a bottom, which means you didn't hit the bottom and the bottom's still yet to come. So be patient. Patience in trading is an amazing virtue. Hi, Kevin. With all the negativity around centralized exchanges, how can Coinmetro put users at ease? That's a great question. And I think this is one way that we do that. And I know that, I've seen AMAs and Twitter spaces. There's actually, CZ actually did an AMA in Portugal at Web Summit, if those of you don't know. I don't know how he defines an AMA. To me, it means ask me anything, which I guess is probably how he defines it as well. But it may not say this, but actually to me, what it means is answer anything. That doesn't mean that to CZ. I'll leave it there. I don't know. There's probably a video of the AMA online. You should watch it. Get some popcorn. Not because it's interesting. Just get some popcorn. So I think this is definitely part of it. But I think the other part of it is that we need to be cognizant of the fact that while we always try to do the right thing and we always try to make the right decisions, we need to be mindful of the fact that we exist in an industry where this shit is not going to stop happening in the short term. And we need to have a narrative that people can relate to. And I don't want to be, I don't necessarily want to be the guy that just jumps. I mean, I love jumping all over, Binance. I think it's like a pastime for me. It's a hobby. People say, what do you do for a hobby? Do you play sports? I say, no, I talk about Binance. That's what I do. By myself at home. That's sad. But the end with, sometimes with other people, come on. I'm like, I'm a social Binance destroyer, not just by myself. This is going off on a tangent. We probably shouldn't go down. My point is to say is that, we need to have a narrative that speaks to people. And this isn't anything new in finance. And I think the narrative we have does speak to people. We just haven't spoken to enough people. Traditional finance does this all the time, hostile takeovers, collapses, bubble bursts. This is not new for crypto. In fact, it's so much less in crypto. If you look at the size of the market in general versus what happens in traditional, it's meaningless for the most part. We're still really are in the early days. And I know everybody says that, but it's true. That doesn't mean prices in the early days. It just means in general of adoption, of creating this new market, of trying to create this whole access and giving everybody an opportunity. We're still in the very early days. So I think a lot of it's about storytelling. A lot of it's about making people understand that we get it. We understand. It's about trying to do everything we can to be transparent, not show it. Showing transparency and being transparent are two very different things. I don't just want to show it. I want to be it. I want to live it. I want to breathe it. And it's about doing things like this, like being open, like answering questions, having, our Telegram group, taking feedback, working with our clients, letting you know when we fuck up. I mean, come on, because, inevitably fuck ups happen, right? But the problem is that when you don't know fuck ups happen, you know what happens? Bigger fuck ups, right? Because I guarantee you, before this happened with FTX, there was a lot of little missteps along the way. Did you know about those missteps? Of course you didn't. Why? Because no one's going to tell you. Because being transparent sometimes hurts business, like I said previously. But sometimes you have to be transparent, right? So I think we have everything we need. It's just about spreading that narrative, living that narrative, actually doing what we say we're going to do, and just striving to be better always. Hi, Kevin. With all the suspicions around exchanges, how do you think we'll see a rise in demand for exchanges to use non-custodial wallets? Yes, to a certain extent. Still, at the end of the day, it's always going to be about usability. And for most people, centralized exchanges are going to be the way they get in and out of the market. It's as simple as that. That's not going to change. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? As this whole industry matures, as the insurance industry matures, as regulatory coverage matures, it's going to be a place where people can feel confident, because even if they don't have all their crypto on a ledger wallet sitting in their bedside drawer with their private key scattered between 7 different friends, written on paper with erasable ink, for fuck's sake. They are going to feel confident because there's going to be a system behind them that protects them. And so we're all built, a lot of us are building towards that. So in the short term, maybe, but in the long term, look, there are always going to be people that don't want to take this burden on themselves. It's as simple as that. Or that want access to certain services, or that want the usability factor, or anything else. And choice, the reason why Bitcoin is great, the reason why crypto is great, it gives us a choice. But having one choice is not much of a choice. So there needs to be choices. And why we, as centralized exchanges, and I think non-custodial is the future for centralized exchanges as well. I think hybrid is where we're headed. I don't know when that's going to happen collectively around the market. I think Coinmetro is probably going to start to work on ideas 2024, 2025. But the idea of being able to have centralized services but decentralized settlement, I think, is the way where most will end up. And that's great. And things like Credo are going to help power that journey. Hey, hi, Dad. Oh, maybe this is my daughter. Probably not. This is probably the last question, unfortunately, guys. There's a lot more questions. I really appreciate that. You guys got to hit me up on Telegram. I'm going to talk to our social guys about possibly having maybe a Twitter space or some type of Discord, something so we can knock out some more of these questions. And you don't have to look at my face for another hour. What is the greatest bear market opportunities poor bees should be DCAing into if they ever want to make it? Bruh. Hi, Dad. Hey, son. So look, historically speaking in crypto, the assets that have always done well for DCAing and still do well are Ethereum and Bitcoin. That's just me being honest with you. If you're going to DCA into something and you're worried about crashes and you're worried about illiquidity and you're worried about having to hold for long periods, ETH and Bitcoin. And ETH has outperformed Bitcoin over the last at least year and a half, maybe even 2 years. It didn't hit it didn't hit a 2022 low, for example, just recently with the news. It still might, but it hasn't yet. Bitcoin did. Broke that low by quite a good percentage. So for DCAing, yeah. Now, if you have a percentage of portfolio, which you always should, that you have more risk on assets, then you just want to look for things that are tied to companies that you believe in. That's how people invest in stocks. That's it. Now, of course, it's about fundamentals and shit like that as well. But fundamentals are people. So again, it comes back to a trust factor. No matter what a business does, technically to try and show you that they're trustworthy, you still need to trust the business. You need to trust the people behind it. So for DCAing, if you want something really ironclad, it's ETH and BTC, man. That's historically where it's been at. And DCAing has done better than trading. Anybody that traded through the storm probably lost more money than a guy who just simply DCA'd regardless of the price. But adding to your portfolio things that you believe can actually make a difference, companies that are actually going to flourish, also a great way to go. Probably going to be a smaller percentage of your portfolio overall, though. Unless you're very risk on. If you have a portfolio, you want to go super high risk, you're never going to become a billionaire by putting hundreds of thousands into Bitcoin or Ethereum. You may become a billionaire, or you may become a millionaire by putting tens or hundreds into altcoins. It's possible. It will still happen, even with regulation coming. That's still going to be a thing for some time. It's not going to be a thing in Bitcoin. So it really depends on kind of where you're at, what your goal is. For me, you should always be more conservative than risk on, but taking on risk is not a bad thing. In fact, you'll never see success until you take on some amount of risk. You just need to be careful in the risks you take. Simple as that. Very careful, especially in light of what happened. All right, guys, it's been an hour and 3 minutes. I really do appreciate the questions. They were amazing. I hope the answers were anywhere close to equally as amazing. If you still have questions, you can always hit me up on Telegram at Kevin Murcko. You can tweet me at Kevin Murcko. I try to get back to everybody. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes you got to pester me. I don't get upset when you pester me. Please pester me if I haven't gotten back to you. I will eventually. We have 24/7 support as well, right? By the way, guys. So if it's something to do with your account, please hit them up first. They are way better at that than I am. But if you want to chat about markets and anything else, do it. And as I always say, if it's your first time watching, have a great weekend. Spend time with friends and family. If you can't do it physically, do it virtually. I hope I can stop saying that at some point in the near future. Hopefully you can all do it physically now. Maybe you've been doing it physically now for like a year and you hate your family already because you've seen them too much. I don't know. But when you are talking to your family, make sure you tell them about XCM because why wouldn't you? XCM is amazing. Have a great weekend, everybody. Hit me up if you have questions. And let's see if we can get some type of space or something worked out so we can hit up some more of these questions in public. Cheers, guys.